Adrian says that she's getting a lot of energy from the morning rituals with us. Great. That is the actual intention of these rituals.
Yes.
Now, I would like to encourage all of you to come and check it out. Check out our live stream in the morning. Now, whether you are Christian or whatever religious background or religious faith that you have, it's really worth to check this out. We've managed to discover an ancient manuscript that has really not been used much by other magicians really at all in a very, very long time, because the manuscript came down to us from ancient Egypt, where it was found by archaeologists. This is a compendium. It's a compendium of various texts that were produced between the 3rd and the 5th centuries. But those themselves were compendia as well.
Right,
so
earlier materials.
The manuscript is written in the first person of Jesus. And the manuscript itself purports to be the secret teachings that Jesus gave to his disciples. And part of this, the only part that we've really been talking about publicly so far, is called the Treasury of Light, and the opening of the Treasury of Light. And it's a fantastic system of solar invocation.
Yes, and it's nice. And what I like best about it is how fine it is.
Oh, it's like fine wine. You know, I've worked a lot with Enochian magic, and I've worked a lot with Kabbalistic magic, and I've worked with Chaldean magic, a whole lot of different magical systems. This one is quite unique in its purity.
Right, and I'll explain it to you the easiest way is when I'm working the shamanic path, it feels very much like putting on a nice fox fur coat, right?
Right.
But when I practice this magic, this new magic that we're doing, it feels more like slipping on the finest, thinnest silk robe after having a lovely steam bath and rose perfume. It's so much more edifying in the qualities.
You know, one of the things that has sort of struck me out there is, you know, we always come in and we review the ritual afterward, and we look at your comments, and, you know, we can't interact with you during the ritual because we're live streaming on 5 different platforms. Right. But we always do come in and we look at those streams later, and we look at the things that you guys were talking about, and we think about them and maybe build them into the ritual the next day.
Yes, yes.
You know, so yeah, we do check that stuff out. And yeah, there's some really interesting things that we've been noticing. And one of the things that's kind of odd that I've noticed is that there have been some Christians that show up, and they are, wow, shocked. Jesus didn't do magic. There's no magic in Christianity.
Right.
You know, it's like, because, you know, they have been in a way misled by their churches to believe that magic is somehow evil. But indeed, actually, Jesus was a magician.
Right, and the whole preconditioning to dislike magic is just another way that the church removes the power of God from the individual and places intermediaries in the place.
This is just one example of, remember what I told you before. Let's not say magicians of light and black magicians or whatever, and let's not even say that there are people doing it, which there are, but let's just take it to the most abstract level.
Okay.
There are forces of liberation at work on this planet. And there are forces of enslavement at work on this planet.
Yes, clearly.
Exactly. Now the question is, who has the upper hand at any given time?
Right.
We're trying to tip the balance, and quite determinedly. But these forces are here, and they're always here. Now, there have been times historically, for example, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, all of these are great avatars. Lao Tse,
Manu.
They all came and they left behind them something. But what do they have in common? Each of these great avatars were all of them liberators of humanity. They showed a path of liberation, a path of freedom.
Yes.
A path of spiritual liberation. In our case, a path of magical liberation. But what happened Immediately after they passed,
the message got twisted and
turned
and reformed into something else.
Right. Because as long as the avatar is here, you can hear it directly from them. You get the actual message. But the minute they're gone, the forces of enslavement go to work. So we went, for example, in Christianity, we went from the early phase where there was not only an exoteric message, which was the message that Jesus gave to the masses, but there was also an esoteric message, of course, because you can't teach everything to everyone.
Right.
But there were certain teachings that were actually reserved to the disciples. Otherwise, why disciples?
Right.
And, you know, interestingly enough, if you do some historical research, guys, hey, don't take my word for this. Research it yourselves. There were actually also female disciples back then.
At an equivalent status and an equivalent number of them.
Right. This message was a message of life. His message was a message of life. His message was a message of liberation, salvation, freedom. Mm-hmm. His message was also a message of abundant life. Now, what does that mean? That means abundant God force energy, the same solar energy we keep talking about all the time.
Yes.
He was talking about that and teaching people how to have more of it. Right, so true, exactly what happened in Buddhism when the exegetes started to predominate Siddhartha Gautama's teachings. Exactly. Mm-hmm. They turn everything on its head.
And they turn it back into the
slave religion, the slave mentality, anything to perpetuate the status quo, that humanity remains static, humanity remains here on the planet. Mm-hmm. But this is the deal. You know, Jesus is an avatar. He was a good farmer. He came and he planted a whole lot of seeds in people's souls. Some of those seeds fell on fertile ground and took root and sprouted. Some of those seeds fell on rocky ground and died. You know, some fell on salty ground and died. But there were some that fell on good ground and they grew. Here we are now, 2,000 years later. We're in a weird situation on this planet because the forces of enslavement are strong and they're doing their best to, you know, put everybody under their jackboot. But at the same time, we have all of those souls that were impregnated with those seeds that were planted by Jesus 2,000 years ago. And now all of us are ripe for the harvest. It is now the time of the harvest, when it is time for us to ascend. Is it by accident that now we rediscover this ancient magic of ascension that was left to us by him? Or is that because of the time that we're here, at the end of the age, the omega point rather than the alpha point? Here we are at the end now, the time not of planting, but of the harvest. The time of the scythe, when you come through and everything that is ripe for the harvest, you harvest it.
And no one weeps for harvested grain. They weep for the grain that was not harvested.
Right.
Because the grain that is harvested has fulfilled its duty and has lived up to its own highest standard. The highest standard of grain is to be consumed. The highest standard of earthly existence is to ascend.
Right. And now is the time of ascension. It's time that the magic of ascension be taught far and wide, and we're going to do our best to get that out there. It's very interesting because, you know, here in America, you know, Christianity in America has a very particular flavor. And one of the things that they think is going to happen in the last days is called something called the Rapture. Now, this idea of Rapture is really nothing more than a Christian synonym for ascension. You know, to ascend the way that Jesus ascended. There were numerous accounts of ascension in the New Testament and in the Old. It's not without reason that John was baptizing in the desert,
where there's so much sun, and it's completely unhindered by water. Water is glorious and also necessary for life. but it does act as a filter and a screen to keep the true power of the sun from reaching the earth. And the true power of the sun is scorching and burning and has the capacity to lay waste, as is evidenced in the desert. But in fact, this is the best place to go if you seek to grow your soul.
Now, no doubt there was a time that in the early times of Christianity that these teachings, this magic that we have rediscovered, was oath-bound for sure. It was only for initiates. In fact, those initiation rituals still exist, and we will talk more about that another time. Leslie and I are going to do our best. It is our mission, part of it, to put these materials out.
Yes.
To make them available to people in a way that they can be used. That's why we're every morning out there showing you how to open the treasure of light. And we've been getting some very good results from it.
Yes, we have been.
Yep. And so what's really unique about the system is that, okay, we have also a system of solar magic in the Golden Dawn. In fact, we use also solar alchemy in the Golden Dawn, which is an even faster way in the third order of developing your solar body. But these things, there's a reason why they're reserved for the highest grades of the order. They can be dangerous, and also they're oath-bound. What we have in this fascinating system of the magic of Jesus is a system that comes to us not oath-bound.
Right.
And we have tested it, and it's safe. The openings of the treasuries, they're not as powerful as if you have been through the actual initiations, but people feel it just watching it on the internet, even when it's not live. It's moving the God Force energy in them.
And that is the most spectacular thing that we have to report from these magical experiments. The fact that these rites have the capacity to transmit God Force energy through space and time.
Right. And what's really cool about it, what's really, really cool about it is here we have a system of solar magic that's safe, effective, and is not oath-bound. How about that? In fact, it is your patrimony.
Yes.
Especially if you're Christian, this is your patrimony. It is incredible. And it is, in my opinion, a great shame that it was repressed by the church. You know, his message, the original message, had become so degraded, and all of these power-mongering people in Rome were now turning it into a church, which was becoming yet another slave religion, a religion of enslavement of people.
Yes, a religion to encourage you to be meek and to submit.
And stay here on this planet. Keep coming back.
Keep coming back. Enjoy your wheel of samsara.
Right, and don't contact any of the inner planes. Just talk to Jesus.
Right.
Don't contact your ancestors. Just talk to Jesus. These are ideas that were not, that his message had nothing to do with these things.
Nothing at all.
These are things that came from the church. It's the opposite message of the original one.
And this is the reason why I think pagans and witches should be incredibly interested in this magic. First, it's not Christian. It was practiced by people who also did not call themselves Christians. They had a different name for themselves, a name which we have not yet discovered.
Although they did practice the magic that was in his name. It was the magical system that came from him. It was the magical system of the apostles.
But it was the magical system. And you see, my dear pagan friends,
liberation, for spiritual liberation and ascension.
The Christian church despised magic then, and is still, for the most part, despises it now. And we, as witches, understand the power of magic.
This business of magic being evil and the church teaching that magic is evil, this is based on a misunderstanding of the early scriptures. It's all taken from the Old Testament, and it's done very, very tenuously. And it's obvious, all of these miracles that Jesus was teaching. Is it not obvious that he was a magician?
Yes, it was to the people of his time, which is what I find most significant. As I go back through the historical record, further through the archaeological record, and I start looking at the cross-cultural comparisons, the people of the day were lambasting Jesus on the basis of his magical acts. not of a lot of the other things that are talked about these days. And this is what I want to encourage everyone to understand. Magic is your birthright as a human. Even Jesus understood this. And he was, in fact, one of our greatest magicians, as evidenced by the miracles that he performs. Because miracles, if nothing else, are evidence of magic at work.
So I think that it's very possible that we may have rediscovered the original message of one of the greatest avatars the West has ever known.
Yes.
And, it's of course things get twisted around over 2,000 years, and they certainly did. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. Thank you for asking. That's really, really good. So yes. Do come out to the live stream. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. Yes. We're out there every morning at sunrise. It varies a little bit day to day. Right now, it's about 7 a.m. Have you ever wanted to gain real magical abilities so you can become the master of your destiny?
Do you wish you could get the ancient secret key for free so you can build the life of your dreams?
If you've wanted more out of life, to become all that you can be, physically, romantically, financially, spiritually, then you need to take action and get this right now.
That's right, and for free, but it won't be available for much longer.
So go right now to thescienceofmiracles.com and get started. Achieve the prosperous life you want for yourself. Gain ultimate life mastery.
Are you familiar with the Rosicrucian? With what's his name? He's popular in the States. He's the president or the from the Golden Dawn. What's his name?
Oh,
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
Have David Griffin.
I saw an email yesterday that he sent out about there's a magical war going on.
Demons of the infernal realm. All of them. There is really a magical war going on. There is a guy called David Griffin who is heading all these magicians.
David Griffin is S.L. McGregor Mather's present successor.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
I'm Golden Dawn Imperator David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
David Griffin.
There's a magical war going on.
So there is really a magical war going on.